You stand as the royal physician within the shadowed grandeur of the Madrid palace, the year 1833 etching its final, unforgiving mark upon the calendar. The king is gone, Ferdinand VII, the sovereign whose iron grip had clenched Spain's throat for nearly 2 decades, now lies still in the hush of eternity. Yet your duties persist, unyielding as the stone walls that enclose you. A summons arrives, urgent and veiled in secrecy, drawing you to the private chambers of the departed monarch. The air grows thick with the scent of beeswax candles and fading incense, as if the very atmosphere mourns the man who once commanded tempests. There, before you, stands Queen Regent Maria Cristina, her regal poise fractured by grief's relentless tide. Tears trace silent paths down her porcelain cheeks, but it is her words that pierce deeper. Ferdinand's form reposes beneath opulent silk sheets, the fabric pooling like spilled ink around his unyielding silhouette. Even in death, the spectre of his tyranny lingers, a mocking echo in the chamber's vaulted silence, as though his unquiet spirit defies the grave's embrace. Yet it is not the pallor of his face that seizes your gaze, nor the rigid lines of a crown once worn with venomous pride. No, your eyes are inexorably drawn lower, to the shrouded form beneath those silken veils, the enigma that shadowed his every decree, intertwined with his cruelties, his labyrinthine suspicions, his labyrinth of betrayals. This was the anatomical aberration, the whispered scandal that courtiers evaded. Historians, in their leather-bound tomes, would skirt its edges with euphemism, consigning it to footnotes, shrouded in discretion. Ferdinand VII's manhood, a grotesquely exaggerated, unnaturally contorted endowment that embodied both his profound mortification and a perverse, unyielding vanity. As you commence the rites of preservation, your instruments glinting coldly in the candlelight, your thoughts drift like smoke through the palace's labyrinthine corridors, ensnaring fragments of lore long suppressed, tales murmured among the tapestried walls, bespoke cushions engineered for nocturnal exertions, the anguished cries of consorts ill, prepared for such enormity, frantic stratagems to beget an heir amid nature's merciless caprice. In this moment, you comprehend that your task transcends mere anatomy. You safeguard the corporeal relic of a dynasty warped by excess, a reign as outsized and ruinous as the affliction it bore, devouring all it sought to claim in its insatiable grasp. Before we unravel these veiled chronicles of endurance and anguish, where the throne's velvet conceals thorns of the flesh, pause to reflect. If the annals of power intrigue you with their buried verities, lend your favor with a like and subscribe to our channel for further unveilings of history. And in the comments below, share the distant corner of the globe from which you join this odyssey. I am continually awed by the invisible threads that bind us, disparate souls traversing continents and epochs, united by an insatiable thirst for the past's concealed echoes. To fathom Ferdinand VII, one must first confront the malediction of his nativity, not the hex of sorcerers or celestial ire, but the insidious venom of royal consanguinity, a lineage poisoned across generations. The Spanish Habsburgs and Bourbons had woven their fates through unions of kin-to-kith cousins entwined with cousins, uncles bound to nieces, birthing a hereditary cataclysm that erupted in psyches fractured and formed. From this alembic of decay emerged Ferdinand, an incarnate testament to imperial rot, born amid the austere spires of El Escorial on the 14th of October, 1784. He was the issue. The die was cast from conception. Ferdinand would redeem it in the most visceral, ignominious currency. As boyhood yielded to the tempests of youth, the cruel jest of Providence unfurled in his maturing frame. By adolescence, the royal Privy Council's healers exchanged furtive glances, their murmurs coalescing around the princely anomaly, a phallus of such prodigious scale and eccentric contour that it bordered on the otherworldly, defying the tenets of natural philosophy. Archival fragments, sequestered in the Vatican's labyrinthine repositories for epochs untold, render Ferdinand's plight in the dispassionate lexicon of medicine, yet laced with an undercurrent of dread. One healer's quill etched. His Royal Highness labours under a phallus of dimensions so exceptional and conformation so singular that congress of the flesh may exact undue tribulation. Another, unsparing in candour, likened it to a cue for the billiard table, slender as a taper at its root, swelling to the girth of a clenched fist at its crown, elongated sufficiently to prop a weary frame upon uneven cobbles. In an age idolizing the Grecian ideal where modesty in form bespoke refinement and noble lineage, Ferdinand's enormity branded him an aberration, a grotesque parody of virility. What might provoke envy in lesser circles became, for the heir apparent, a wellspring of abject humiliation, a phantom chain binding his spirit to perpetual vigilance. Ferdinand's formative years unfolded as a tableau of discord, a crucible that might shatter sterner souls yet hammered him into a despot of unyielding malice. His sire, Charles IV, embodied enervated indolence, favouring the chase's primal thrill over the sceptre's burdens. His dam, Maria Luisa, indulged appetites unbound, parading her liaison with Manuel de Godoy, Spain's shadow sovereign, before the courts. The youth imbibed these spectacles of debasement daily, gleaning axioms of dominion, perfidy. The palace thrummed with insidious susurrations concerning the prince's plight, valets stifling mirth behind gloved palms, nobles veiling barbs in silken pleasantries, envoys dispatching missives to distant courts chronicling the Iberian indignity. Ferdinand, attuned to ridicule's sting from cradle's edge, internal his most sequestered vulnerability, laid bare in jest, fermented into a rancour profound and abiding, one that would later lash Spain itself with retaliatory fury. Paranoia burst. His preceptors observed the metamorphosis with mounting unease as puberty's shadows lengthened. The boy grew cloaked in secrecy, vengeful toward underlings. His cruelty a lash against perceived slights. Retainers who faltered in service met not mere dismissal, but oblivion's brink. Ferdinand wielded rank as a bulwark against bodily impotence, a tyrant's primer in retribution. A chronicle from a confessor's hand illuminates the abyss yawning within. Upon a pageboy's inadvertent intrusion during the prince's attaining nubility's threshold, unveiled the anomaly in stark relief to the king's leeches. Dr. Francisco Flores, Ferdinand's confidant in corporeal matters, bequeathed clandestine annotations a casement into the clinical abyss of his sovereign's torment. His Majesty's phallus, Flores inscribed, exhibits a configuration of utmost singularity. The radix spans scarcely a thumb's breadth, ballooning to a perimeter. Its span surpasses all chronicled precedents, approximating 10 inches flaccid, augmenting manifold in tumescence. Most perturbing, the aberrant arc and excrescences of tissue. The portents for Ferdinand's tenure as consort and sire loomed dire. Congress, unassisted by artifice, courted calamity, demanding interventions arcane and apparatuses bespoke. Artisans of the realm, under nocturnal veils, forged conjugal adjuncts, cushions contoured with precision, scaffolds of velvet and whalebone to facilitate union sans laceration to his brides-to-be. Yet Ferdinand fixated upon filters and distillations, vowing anatomical accord or seminal potency. Alchemists, domestic and savants imported, converged upon Madrid's gloom, peddling elixirs of unicorn tusk pulverized, nacreous dust, and botanicals esoteric tonics to contract his excess or amplify vigor despite distortion. All proved chimerical. Ferdinand's anguish rendered him prey to In 1802, the prince wed his cousin, Princess Maria Antonia of Maria Antonia, graced with intellect and allure, brimmed with anticipation for her espoused realm. Ferdinand, in the glare of assembly, approximated suavity, courteous, solicitous, laced with feigned ardour. But splendour's curtain falls, yielding to intimacy's unvarnished stage. Omens stirred when Ferdinand's equerry solicited Maria Antonia's attendance for arcane requisites. The nuptial alcove demanded contrivances opaque to the uninitiated, deemed customary for exalted pairs. Bespoke bolsters materialized, flanked by vials of unguents and apparatuses, evoking the surgeon's trade. Maria Antonia, cocooned in piety's cloister, schooled in tongues, melodies, and protocol's graces, with connubial verities sketched in euphemism's fog by flustered matrons, as Ferdinand breached the threshold, uncloaked. Maria Antonia's inaugural sight of his form unleashed pandemonium. A damsel's reminiscence penned in after-years' seclusion evokes the tableau. Her Majesty erupted in shrieks as if beholding Lucifer incarnate, recoiling to the arras, accusatory digit thrust forth. Fiend, fiend, till we dreaded her wits had fled irretrievably. The organ, likened by eyewitnesses to a war club hafted slenderly, defied her sheltered fancy, its magnitude a spectre of dread, its helical warp and nodular protuberances an eldritch apparition, evoking some primordial leviathan. What ensued transcended romance's rite, veering into procedure's chill domain. Ferdinand's cadre of groomed medics intervened, elucidating to the aghast bride the exigencies ahead. Cushions arrayed in geometric mercy, balms administered with ritual gravity, the act commenced akin to vivisection under ether's pall. Epistles amid leeches, entombed in obscurity, delineate a farce of dysfunction. Ferdinand's pillar demanded the engineered prop to avert self-mutilation, laudanum dosed to render Maria Antonia pliant yet sentient. The toll upon psyches was cataclysmic. Ferdinand's insecurities, already serpentine, coiled tighter amid her visceral recoil. Maria Antonia, ensnared in what we now term erosion, their quest for progeny devolved into liturgical horror. Cyclically enacted with inexorable sorrow, physicians marshaled the sanctum's arsenal. Maria Antonia, narcotized to docility, submitted to the machination's inexorability. Postlude saw the twain sequestered in palatial extremities, convalescing from edicts summoned ligatures of hide and gossamer, forged by saddlesmiths, to immobilize her amid congress, quelling recoil or remonstrance, a perversion infiltrating the royal atelier's sanctity. Temporal obsessions gripped him, couplings synchronized to celestial portents, lunar phases divined by stargazers, occultists, and shades of forbidden lore pledging stellar succor for seminal triumph. For a quarter year, Ferdinand imposed incantations smoky, intonations droning, postures extrapolated from fabled scrolls yielding, in fleeting mercy, 2 gestations. The cortege exulted. Ferdinand's hubris inflated. Iberia suspended breath for throne's continuance. Yet both quickenings dissolved in miscarriage's deluge, amplifying traumas The sequel, 1805's near-term travail, unleashed hemorrhage and agony that courted her demise, the queen a spectral wraith thereafter, laudanum her sole sovereign, eroding vitality across her residual vigintal span. Ferdinand's reprisal to these voids, unmasked ego's abyss, and sadism's bloom. Scorning wifely anguish, he arraigned her as saboteur, willful potions abortifacient, contortions contrived, liberal taints repelling Catholic fruition. These calumnies, sibilant through vaulted halls, pulverized Maria Antonia's remnants of equanimity. She internalized the curse. Her terminal moons dissolved in supplication ceaseless, imploring absolution for phantoms unbegotten. Maria Antonia's decease in May 1807, at tender 21, bore the mantle fever and constitutional frailty a diplomatic shroud. Verity delved darker. Despair's attrition, compounded by erosive violation, narcotic bondage, and spirit scourging. Yet oblivion proffered no reprieve from Ferdinand's delusions. Whispers proliferated of envenomation, these spectres kindled by the apothecary's demise, days hence, his scrawled enigma confiscated, its revelations perhaps toxins chronicle, or the marital yoke's impossibility obliterated. Ferdinand's postlude demeanour betrayed veiled solace amid ceremonial lamentation. Within fortnights, overtures probed fertile widow queens, physicians labouring to temper Congress's ferocity for successors. This birthed royal annals' most aberrant assays, adjuncts refined, resections conjectured to reforge his form. As nuptials loomed anew, Ferdinand's essence curdled into the despot, loathed by posterity. Conjugal carnage fused with corporeal doubt, birthing a void of empathy, beholding kin not as souls but instruments or impediments. His inaugural bond a flawed utensil, discarded, lieges, mechanisms for aggrandizement, dissenters, effigies for immolation, retinue dalliances unveiled burgeoning cruelty, inadvertent glimpses of nudity met vanishing acts, sentinels lax in discretion exiled to empire's frayed marches, ridicule's phantom. By 1807, Ferdinand anchored a cabal of Iberia's elite magnates, martial titans plotting Charles IV's ouster and Godoy's eclipse. Blind to the peril, they yoked to a psyche warped by venereal void, deadlier than prior ineptitude. Christened Fernandinos, they burnished El Deseado's luster, sagacity, zeal, reformist promise for resurgence. Concealed, his volatility, reprisals venomous against the intrigue crested October 1807 inches El Escorial's tumult, unmasking Ferdinand's regicidal pact with Bonaparte. Apprehended, his fealty fractured, co-plotters abandoned, confessions exhaustive naming all, paternal clemency implored, allies immured or expatriated. This perfidy presaged his scepter's tenor exploitation, succeeded by eradication. Concomitant, his affliction metastasized. Leeches chronicled augmentation, fresh distortions impeding union further. Savants posit microphallus hormonal, a perpetual hypertrophy into maturity. Ramifications stark, adjuncts ever arcane, consorts ever subdued for propagation. Artificers, ensconced in palatial crypts, transmuted into adepts of aberrant craft cushions, tunable, manacles ornate, contrivances mitigating spousal detriment, secrecy enforced by largesse and menace. Several fabricators perished mysteriously, fueling murmurs of silencing lethal. Napoleon's 1808 incursion compelled abdication, consigning Ferdinand to Valençai's gilded cage, a nadir of abasement, throne forfeited, captor privy to his shame via Gallic dossiers exhaustive. Captivity's sextet spanned medical inquisitions, unbound by protocol's fetters. French savants' exile bore tidings of Iberian valors perishing for restoration's dream, irony galling. Trenches crimson for a sovereign fixated on dysfunction's dominion, heirlooms curse perpetuation. Epistles to continental crowns canvassed brides amenable to singular exigencies, penned in isolation revealing detached. Ferdinand's 1814 repatriation ignited euphoria unparalleled. Blossoms hurled, genuflections en masse, Madrid's cobbles choral with acclaim. War-orphaned progeny beheld their salvific liege. Edifices reverberated jubilation. Ferdinand's carriage reinvestiture heralded the ominous decade. His sophomore consort, Maria Isabel of Portugal, cousin in consanguinity's carousel, alighted 1816 at 1:19, buoyant with betrothal's illusions ephemeral. Attendants prepped by leeches for nuptial arcana, yet actuality eclipsed augury. The rite, baroque in excess, veiled sovereign desperation. Ferdinand altar-bound in aureate raiment, visage taut, consummation's cataclysm scarred indelibly. Despite armory exhaustive contrivances transalpine, savants pan-European Ferdinand's Leviathan prevailed insuperable. Nocturnal ululations pierced corridors not in ecstasy but existential dread, crimson linens and splintered oaken testament to torment medieval. Isabel's sequela. Stutter emergent, recoil instinctive at his advent, hysteric paroxysm, attendants chronicled nocturnal shrieks, invocations against dream-haunting behemoths. Ferdinand construed terror as regal affront, paranoia cresting. Isabel's dispatches rifled, viands assayed, boudoirs ransacked for perfidy. Venereal malaise burgeoned politic psychosis, permeating edicts. Heir, Hunt's imperative devoured duo and domain convocations aberrant. Anatomists, vivisectionists, even carny savants in anomalies. A leech's diary unveils nadir. Ferdinand, solution. Starved, bade Teutonic and Gallic observers chronicle coital debacles, transmuting marriage, bed to clinical amphitheatre notes. Esquisses disseminated academe ward, rendering dysfunction continental seminar. Isabel, paraded before this voyeur legion, unraveled. Sustenance forsaken, emaciation perilous, gaze vacant evoking sepulchral chill. Youthful queen, palatial wraith ensnared. Ramifications regnal, inexorable. Ultramarine revolts invoked airless curse as celestial rebuke to Bourbonry. Broadsides caricaturing impotence, corporeal mirroring governance's barrenness. Ferdinand's riposte, purges renewed. Inquisition revived quizzing carnal calumny, engendering terror wherein spousal colloquy courted pyre or oubliette. Secrecy's mania absurdified. Subterranean conduits burrowed for unobserved traversal, prisms angled to unmask lurkers, espionage web dedicated to nuptial tattle. Isabel's decline accelerated under onslaught, dual carnal assault, terror psychic. Leech's noted These simulacra, irony's chalice in 1818's terminus, post-biennial inferno, liberated Isabel via mortality's sole portal for exalted dames, nervous depletion per decree, intimation's subtler self-wrought terminus. Isabel's obsequies, macabre carnival appealing adherents. Ferdinand, cadaver caressed repeatedly in embalming's rite, murmuring ovarian squander, mortuary effigy enshrined privy, soliloquies to vacant visage reported. Yet lineage's pursuit brooked no interregnum, moon's post, interment, envoys bartered tertiary bride, dysfunction's blight menaced isolation Iberian. Ultimately, Maria Josepha Amalia of Saxony quatua et viginti, matura, fiscal exigency familial blinding to notoriety consented 1819, nuptials subdued, mirroring senescence and court's matrimonial fatigue dignitaries sparse, pomp attenuated, ritual rote thrice fumbled. Josepha, prepped via Saxon Iberian savantry, imported armory medicinal, leech personal in marital rigors, stance pragmatic, duty clinical or romantic, methodology, union patterned, scheduled assays, intimacies timetabled, supervised surgically, affection's simulacrum forsaken. Josepha's ledgers, scrupulous as savants, catalogued chronometry, modalities, yields, Detachment galled Ferdinand beyond antecedent dreads. Suspicion burgeoned. She anatomized him curiosity. Ward, dispatches Saxon dissected for anatomical espionage. Iberian implosion persisted. Ultramarine secession piecemeal. Treasural hemorrhage imperial. Sovereign's fixation neutered crisis address. Convocations vitiated by connubial strife. Decrees deferred for seminal stratagems. Gratitude initial for repatriation, soured to cognizance of monarchical toll, urban unrest, rural brigandage, famine whilst adjuncts and savants foreign gorged royal purse. Spain, continental jest, symbolized by intimate ineptitude's notoriety. 1829's decennial terminus, yielded miracle presumptive. Josepha gravid. Shockwaves, cortical and continental speculated mechanics, divine fiat, scientia emergent, or cuckoldry cynic. Ferdinand's transport laced trepidation. Sentinels augmented. Savants pan. Europeans summoned. Sanctums sanctified. Desperation manic. Cabals, spectral sabotaging via arcane or assay. Gestation norm till septenary moons perturbation abruption placentae modernly, meddled by mystic intrusions chaotic. Double cataclysm sundered sanity, sepulture denied. Revivification implored grotesque, putrescence perfuming palace septenary. Acceptance yielded melancholia catatonic sustenance spurned, council evaded, mortuary effigies triune fixated. Sovereign wraith, domain disintegrating. Providence's ultimate jape, 1000. Terminal annals mirrored dysfunction perennial, senescence compounding futility assays pathetic, savants recidivant. Paranoia crescendoed, shocking habitués of regal derangement. Nocturnal eruptions armatured. Christina's demesne rifled treason hunting. Dames recoiled from monarch frenzied, calumny, wielding. Viand rituals ceremonial suspicion tasters quingenary vigilant, collapse neural validating peril imminent. Christina's Neapolitan missives, appropriated, unveiled erosion. Glass aviary existence, respiration rebel. Scanned. Paranoia cortical, Isabella's pattage, dual-edged, heir adored, failure incarnate resented scrutiny physiognomic, esquisses infantile juxtaposed progenitors presumptive. Paternity's riddle gnawed, consummation dysfunction's apotheosis, throne's savior, virility's scourge. Genealogists, phrenologists, Christina's comportment regimented. Scribes facial whilst epistolary, itineraries exhaustive orisons quantified. Tomes inventoried, colloquies audited. Compartmentalization, her bastion, serenity, public masking strain. Diary occulted, chronicled. Thespian unbroken, somnolent, scripted. Conspiracism banalized. Redecorative pleas arsenals harbored, compliments ciphered, devotions intrigue Catholic. Fiscal hemorrhage, conduits covert, alarms baroque. Tasters manifold treasury bled whilst polity famished. Physique's toll, insomniac chronic, dyspepsia, agitation neural dreads helix self, kinship casualties, relative quizzed, birthdays intrigue laden floral arrays, donative dissected. Carlos Freitas surveilled, Christina's matronage Isabella Ward implant treasonous deemed. Retinue neural, turnover destabilizing novitiates errant suspicions stoking. Paternity probes invasive, dossiers exhaustive, Neapolitan paramours, records medical, lineages, ephemera preconceptual, alcove ossuary dysfunctions, effigies mortual, adjuncts inutile, relics invocatory auditions amid despondency cloying, statecraft shadowed intimate defeat. Christina's stress somatic, alopecia, oscillations ponderal, tremors veiled, 1832's apex, envenomation intimate imputed, pre-Congress assays toxigenic degradation marital terminal, leeches presiding. Continental gazetteers, abhorrence lace, dissolution undramatic, decades dramaturgy yielding to evanescence corporeal, anatomy and animus bested, Terminal delirium, evoked spouses spectral, inquisition necropsy clandestine, unveiled gest naturas plenary, organ conservit quatuor decim policies, variat girths radicis ad apicis, cicatrices internals, function normative precluded decades inefficacy explicated, revelatory, autolacerations adolescent, self-vivisections futile, exacerbating trauma stratified, relic Vatican sealed, esquisses, annotations taboo, ecclesiastical, politic, savants privileged evoke fascination disquieting, authorities inferno, anatomized, demise era's closure, bequest fractured Isabella II, paternity equivocal, herited war civic, penure Ferdinand's chronicle admonishes, puissance sans sagacity peril, conjoined dysfunction cataclysm, psyche's lesion national metastasized, ignominy privatized disaster public, intimacies lapses historic resonance amplified, monarchy absolutes toll human, singulars frailties millions fate dictating spouses 3 defunct, daughter dubitable, lieges terrorized, perpetrator, victims esteems, concentrating potency unprepared, physician 1834's, consummating preservation grim, pondered ironies lash, relic corporeal reigns, devouring spouses, progeny, subjects, self, organ transcend curiosity, medical monument, shame's potency, authorities canker, immortality Ferdinand's, undesired, non-magnate regnant, said caveat dysfunction politic masquerading, vaults Vatican's, verities too perturbing chronicle, humane legend, tragic temporis, serica that cloaked distortion, now realms dysfunctional naturae, Ferdinand quis Spain generibus laborans recover intimate regnals,